Father, we thank you, Lord, for today and for the service and this time together. Thank you, Father, that everything that you have for the people here, that you will move in service, Lord. I give it to you, even if it's not in my notes, Father. Thank you that you will speak through me today. In Jesus' name. Amen. So I've gone a little floral this morning in honor of Pastor Fina as they are leaving today. Also, why you have a card in honor. Okay. All right, so this morning I'm going to be building on from last week. So last week, Simon shared about talents and how we all have something special that God has given us, and that we can use those. So I hope you've been thinking on his sermon and mulling that over. So this week I want to continue on in that theme and speak about serving. So I've been serving in the supportive ministry since I was a teenager. In my church, when we got into youth group, we were all encouraged to pick an area in church and get involved and to serve. And so I've been serving since I was about 13, and I've served ever since. So that's 20 plus years, and I have served in a lot of different areas. So I've served on the audiovisual team, bringing words up for worship, or doing a little sound mixing. I've served as a greeter and an usher, and in the babies, the kids, the youth, everything from preaching and teaching to cleaning the toilet after everybody left. So I've done it all, but every job I have done has been necessary and beneficial. Serving is so important because one person can't do everything. Can you imagine if one person was trying to do everything in church? So they were welcoming you at the door and ushering you to your seat and bringing you a hot drink and then coming up here and leading worship and then preaching and then taking the kids out and doing a sermon with them and the youth after that, and you can't forget hospitality, and then you have tear down and set up, and one person can't do everything. There's no way. There is no way the pastor, the leader, whoever needs help. And they need others to serve alongside them and support them. The supportive ministry has been around forever. Eve was the original supportive minister. She was the helpmeet for Adam. God created Eve to help Adam. God saw Adam and said, "It's not good for man to be alone." And all the wives say, "Amen." And he created Eve to help him. She was the original help. We see throughout the Bible where God has brought people together to help and to serve, to be that helpmeet, just like Eve was. When Jesus was doing his ministry, he wasn't doing it alone. And I think we can say that Jesus had a pretty successful ministry, but he never was doing it by himself. In Mark 6, verse 30, we see, he said, the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told him all they had done and taught. You read on in the chapter in Mark, it tells about Jesus feeding the 5,000, how he had the disciples bring him all the food that they could find, right? And brought them the fish and the loaves, and then he had the disciples put everybody in groups. He blessed it, broke it, and then the disciples took it out. If Jesus had been there doing it all himself, it would have taken him 2 days just for him to hand bread to that many people. He needed the disciples doing their part so that the miracle could happen. If the 12 hadn't done their bit, then Jesus could only have fed a small portion. And we see it time and again in Jesus' ministry, how the disciples helped and served. Mark 8, Jesus again fed a crowd. It was 4,000 this time. Mark 3, we see the disciples doing crowd control. Luke 19, Jesus was getting ready to come into town on Palm Sunday. The disciples provided transport. They brought the donkey. Mark 14 shows they prepared the room for the Last Supper. Sorry, none of these are going to be up there. Matthew 17, Peter went fishing to pay taxes. And then in John 4, it talks about the disciples having gone to buy food. Those are all serving and help things. Jesus sent his disciples to do stuff. And it varies throughout. God uses people, not just those people that stand behind the pulpit. This is a very important part, but this isn't the only thing that God calls people to do and to serve. It's not just about the leader. God uses disciples. What they did wasn't always glamorous or exciting. And I have to say, supportive ministry often is not glamorous or exciting, but it's all important. And I've heard supportive ministry described as doing those things for the pastor that the pastor could do for himself, but if he did, he could not fulfill his divine purpose. If our pastor is so caught up in doing all the things then that someone else possibly could be doing, then he isn't going to have time to focus on the things that he needs to focus on. He won't have time for the vision and the calling God has put on our church. It's all about teamwork. And teamwork is giving or sacrificing for the betterment of the team. If you've played any type of team sport, it's not about me, it's about the team. We are all on the same team, and God called all of us and has given all of us a race, but he didn't want us to do it by ourselves. There's a Kenyan proverb that says, sticks in a bundle don't break, right? And then Ecclesiastes 4, verse 12 says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves, and a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. We're not called to do anything alone. There's strength in numbers. The power of a waterfall is not in one drop. One drop of water can do nothing, but you get them all together, and then you have a very powerful force in the waterfall. When we serve, we are freeing others to do what they are called to do. And it gives us an opportunity to use our gifts and our talents, just like Simon was saying last week. Because we do all have gifts that God has given us. Maybe you have a beautiful singing voice, or you are great at speaking, or maybe you're really good with kids, or you're organized, detailed, have a gift of hospitality. Maybe you have 1,000 different types of gifts that can be used in the church. But God has put those into us individually, knowing specifically what he's called you to do and what you will need. He's gifted us and he's graced us, and it's up to us to use those talents that he has given us. In 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10, I like the way that Amplified Bible puts this. It says, just as one of you has received a special gift, a spiritual talent, and ability graciously given by God, employ it in serving one another as is appropriate for good stewards of God's multifaceted grace, faithfully using the diverse, varied gifts and abilities granted to Christians by God's unmerited favor. God has given each of us a special gift. You have the gifts that you need, and you are graced for your race, a gift graciously given by God. That gift comes to serve. That's what you were given wasn't just for you. That's for other people. It will benefit you, but that's not the main reason that God gave you that gift. That's for others. It's to serve. It's to be a blessing to other people. And maybe you see your talents and they don't seem as great as other people have. Like, oh, well, yeah, mine's not as great as theirs. Look at Wendy, she's amazing. I can't do what Wendy can do. When I was younger, I would see people that could sing. And worship is one of my absolute favorite parts of coming to church. I love worship. I love music and I love singing. I'm not talented at singing, but I love to sing. I can maybe get away with the choir, because I can then follow somebody else who knows how to sing and kind of hide my voice, but I'm not a soloist. watch people, maybe in my church or other groups, and I would be so jealous of them and how talented they were to sing by themselves or groups, and I wanted that. And I wish that I could have their talent. And I was so focused on wanting what they had that for the longest time I had no idea what God had put inside of me. I had no idea what my talents were. For years, I was like, I don't really have anything special. There's nothing special about me. Because I was so focused on what they had. Comparing makes us take our focus off of where it's supposed to be. And we have to use what God gave us. If I spend all my time focusing on how amazing Wendy is and wanting to be just like Wendy, I'm never going to step into the things that God has for me to step into and the things that God has graced me to do. Because I am gifted in different areas. I am very organized and detailed and task-oriented. So if you want an event to happen, I can make that happen. I may not be able to sing at that event, but I will make that event happen. Because we are all graced in different areas. And you can do something different than I can do. And in 1 Corinthians, it talks about the many parts of the body. And I know Simon talked about this last week, so I'm not going to go through every single bit of it, because he already did. So I'm going to quote him. This is a Simon quote. "The head can't operate without the arms or the legs. The whole body works in unison in order for the whole body to work effectively." We have to work together. It's all about teamwork. We need every part, from the smallest to the biggest, from the loudest to the quietest. We need every part. And in church, we often only focus on the things that we see up front. These are the important things to us. Preaching, singing. But it takes so much more than that. If every church was filled with only preachers, who would be kids' church? And who would serve hospitality? Who would preach? You can't have just one gift in the church. Everybody would be preaching at each other. No successful ministry can be done by just one person. It takes us all. And every successful ministry, church, needs people who have a servant heart to come alongside and help the vision or the purpose of another. It's taking a voluntary position of second, putting yourself back. And some people have excuses. They say, "Oh, well, no one's asked me to join the team. I don't know where I would fit in. You don't know my pastor, I've never worked for them." Or maybe it's, you just got a new pastor and you don't know how they work there. Those are excuses. Because when we serve, we aren't serving a person. We have to remember who we're working for. When I'm in church, I'm working for God. Not for the pastor, whoever it is. Ephesians 6, verse 7 and 8 says, "Work with enthusiasm, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will reward each one of us for the good we do, whether we are slaves or free." Remembering who you are will really motivate you when you are working and when you are serving, because we do it with excellence and you do your best. I was taught from a very young age that I can hear my dad's voice in my head. If a job is worth doing, it's worth doing right. So whatever I do it the right way, not the shortcut way. And then when we were in Raymond, they very much hammered in excellence. And excellence is not perfection. Excellence is doing your best. Whether that is preaching from the front or starting from you put forth your best, because you are serving God, not serving people. Colossians 3, verse 23 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not working for human masters." And there's another translation that says, "Work willingly at whatever you do, as as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Everything we should be doing to our utmost, our very best, to do it willingly and with a whole heart. Like God's watching you. I remember being a kid and my mom sending us back to clean our room. So my sister and I would go back to clean our room, and especially if it was one of those times that she said, you have to even clean under the bed. Get back there, and we would get started, and we'd clean for a while, and then, when you're a kid, you stop and you find toys that you haven't found for a while, and you start playing, and all of a sudden, cleaning goes out the window, and you've been playing for a long time. When she'd yell back, are you done yet? You'd have a woman go, oh, she's coming. So, almost done. Just a minute. And furiously cleaning, way faster than we were before, because we thought she was going to come back and see. Now as a parent, I see the difference when I send them to go clean by themselves, or when I go to their room and sit with them and clean. There's a very big difference on how fast things get done and the quality of their work. So we should be working always like God's watching us, like He's mom looking at us and watching what we're doing. Not in a you're going to be in trouble kind of way, because that's not how God is. We need to work with a level of excellence that we would use if God was next to us. Not only do we need to serve with excellence, but we need to serve with that pure heart. Now, the difference between doing a job and serving really is your heart. Doing a job, you do it just because you have to, or maybe because you are doing it out of obligation, or reward, or because you want to be seen. Well, that's the wrong motivation. We need to be serving because we're focused on the things like God wants us to be there, that we're blessing other people. It's not about me, it's about others. That's the right heart motivation. Because when we're focused on, will someone see me up here doing this? Yes. Then I'll definitely do it. We're taking the focus off of what's important, which is serving God. In 1 Samuel, we see God talking to Samuel. And Samuel was told to anoint a new king. And he goes to see Jesse, and he finds one of Jesse's sons. He says, this is the guy, right? Tall, strapping, gotta be the right one. And in chapter 16, verse 7, it says, but the Lord said to Samuel, don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. We shouldn't be serving to be noticed. It's about our heart. And in 1 Peter 5, chapter 6, it says, so humble yourself under the mighty power of God, and at the right time, He will lift you up in honor. There is another translation that it says, humble yourself before the Lord, and He will exalt you in due time. When you stay humble and you keep your focus on God, He will lift you up and promote you when it's the right time. When I was in Bible school, I was serving at the church there, and Ring's a pretty big church. It seats about 2,000 people, and so I was on the welcome team. I was greeter at the door, and every Wednesday I would go and I had sheets, and we'd all sign our names by a door, because there were a lot of doors, so it took a lot of people, and I was faithful at doing that. I'd go and I'd put my name down, and if somebody wanted to be at that door instead, I'd say, that's fine, I'll move to another door. Just here to serve. Because some people liked to be at the door that all the pastors went through, so they could be seen at their little spot. My favorite spot was where all the kids came in, because I found that little spot. But I was just there to serve, and so I would put my name down, and I was very faithful. And that's all I was there to do. And a few months after I'd been doing this, the leader came to me, and she said, I'm getting ready to move. She'd finished Rhema. She said, I'm moving, and I want you to take over the leader position. I was the youngest reader for that service. By a lot. Not just like, oh, I'm a year younger than somebody. They were all quite a bit more mature, had been Christians quite a bit longer, had been in the church maybe even longer. But because I had served faithfully, she had seen something. And that wasn't something that I was trying to get. I wasn't looking for a promotion, but I humbled myself, and God promoted me in time, in His time. And I've seen that time and again when I show up somewhere to serve, whether that's my job that I get paid for, or that's something in church. If you show up and keep your heart right, then God promotes you in His time. Having a servant heart isn't about look at me and look what I can do. It's about pointing to God, not doing things to honor yourself, but to honor God. You have to have the right heart attitude. And our attitude is something that we decide beforehand. You have to decide that's what you're going to do. It's not something that just happens. Your attitude tends to be more honest and consistent than your words, because it's easy to say, oh yes, this is how I am. But how you act is totally different. It can make or break a church, family, organization, and it's the only thing that you can really control every day is your attitude. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Your attitude determines your altitude. I don't know if you guys have the book here, The Little Engine That Could, but when I was a kid, I had this book about a little engine. The little engine was trucking along and it came to a really big hill, and the engine tries to go up the hill, but he's so little, and he's trying, and he rolls back down. Couldn't make it. And so the next time he goes to that hill, the whole way up, he's going, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, all the way to the top. And all the way down the other side, he says, I think I could, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could. Because he had his attitude right. I think I can, and he was able to. Our attitudes determine our actions, and we need to have an attitude of a servant. Jesus is our ultimate example, and when he was in the garden before he was arrested, he said, it's Luke 22, verse 42, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. And he also said in John 15, greater love has no man than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. Having an attitude to serve is giving up your life for another. Giving up what you want for another. To give to another at the expense of yourself. One thing that I can control is my attitude and my willingness. Your attitude is your mindset that you carry into the task. As I said, it's determined beforehand. If you have a job that you don't particularly like, and you go into that job like, oh, this is going to be awful. This is the worst job ever. I'm going to hate every minute of it. It's the worst thing to have to do. You are going to have the worst day ever. It's going to be the worst job ever. But if you go into that same task going, this is going to be a great day. God has something for me today. I am going to be a blessing to others, and I am going to be blessed because of it. You're going to have a very different day than if you had gone into it the other way. God is going to use me and bless me. That's the way we need to go into it. And the last thing I want to say is about serving is we need to serve with others in mind. And I've said a lot about serving to help the leader, but this is a little bit different. I mean, when maybe you're already involved. You're already serving on a team. Maybe you're leading a team. We need to serve thinking about others. We need to allow others the space to grow and develop in that area of serving. And we can get really territorial as Christians. I've seen people come into church and they see somebody in their seat. And how dare they sit in my seat? Don't they know I sit there? Every single week I sit in that seat. Why would they sit in my seat? That's my seat. We can get very territorial about things in church. And that happens with serving too, especially if you've been doing it for a long time. So before Kenny and I moved to Bradford, we worked with Go Church in Manchester.
and I was working in the finance department. And as we transitioned up here, I kept working in the finance department in Manchester. So I was traveling back and forth, and I was there 2 days a week. And so when we started the church, it made sense that all the finance stuff, when you get the offering on Sunday, you count it, and somebody has to bank it, and you have to put all the information in the system and all of that. It made sense that that should be me because I was doing it in Manchester anyway. So that job fell to me. And for the first couple of years, I was traveling to Manchester and doing it, and so it made sense. But I eventually got a job in Leeds instead. But I kept doing it because it's where I needed to serve. And I'd been doing it for about 5 years. And Pastor Mackay came to me and he said, "Oh, I have somebody that I'd like to do this." And my reaction was, "But that's my job. Why are you taking away from me? That's my area of serving. That's about me. What am I going to do?" Well, the person that were on the leadership team, they had an accounting background. They were not working. They retired, so they had lots of time to do it. I did not have lots of time to do it. It made perfect sense. They were taking over more things, like looking at budgets and that kind of thing with the church. It made perfect sense for them to take over on this. They had all the experience that they needed, and yet I was going to put what about me? I struggled with giving it up. That was my job in my area, and I really had to do a hard check on that one, because why was I struggling so much? And I was finding my worth in my job. How many jobs I was doing within the church. The fact that I was busy with something. I had stepped away from it being a blessing to the church and serving, and I had gone into me. This is about me. And I did give that up once I realized what was happening. It was a good time for me to give it up. And that person did it, and they did a great job. And when they left the church, it eventually came back to me anyway. So I still do it. But if somebody else wants to do that job, I am happy to give it to you. Because it's not about me. It's about serving. And it's about doing what blesses others. And what is good for the church. And what God's called us to do. When we hold on to our roles or positions, we aren't allowing others to grow and step out in something. We end up stifling not only others, but we end up stopping ourselves from growing. If you are holding on with a death grip, going, "Oh, this is what I've always done," you might miss a new area that God wants you to step into, and to grow into, mature into. Jesus didn't say, "I am the only one that can preach and heal the sick." He sent his disciples out. We read it earlier in Mark 6, and it said that the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told him all they had done and taught. Earlier in the chapter, it shows us that he sent them out in twos. He sent them, and that was their job. He gave them that. He didn't say, "Well, it's my ministry, I'm the only one that can do it." It's like when you have kids. Okay, so when you have kids, you have to let them learn new things, don't you? If you have a baby and they're starting to pull up and start trying to take steps, as a mom, you can't just swoop in every time they start pulling up on something, they might fall over, oh no! They'll never learn to pull up, and they'll never learn to start taking those steps, and they'll never be able to walk, which then puts other development behind. We have to let them fail. We have to let them fall over. And that's the same way. Just like you have to give your kids space to learn and grow, we have to give space for new people to come in to our areas and do something. And even if they don't do it perfect, or if they fall, or if they fail, you have to let them fail at things because they learn valuable lessons from that. We have to give space for someone to try something new, and maybe they will fall, but maybe they'll step into something that they didn't even know they could do. And maybe that'll free you up to step into something that you didn't know you could do. So today we've been talking about serving, and we've said that we need to serve as a team, we need to serve with enthusiasm, we need to serve like someone is watching, and we need to serve with others in mind. This week, I want to encourage you to take some time and to think about ways that you can serve. Pray and ask God to show you things that you can do. I also want to encourage you to talk to maybe somebody on the leadership team. When Pastor Rob and Julia get back, maybe speak to them about areas that there are in the church to serve. Or maybe you're looking around and say, there's something that I really would like to do and see, but there's not a team for that. Well, come talk to us. It might be something that's in the works already, or it might be something that we've never had because we've never had somebody that had a heart for it. It might be stepping out of your comfort zone. I want to encourage you to take a step. Step out. Try something new. Find a place to serve, but always do it